So I noticed a bit of a trend in the last, I'd say, year or so. Um, and it has to do with younger people coming in the store asking for CDs. Now, I carry cassette tapes, I even carry 8 tracks, and obviously vinyl, have for the last 20 years in the store here. Um, and uh, there was the first thing I noticed, I'd say about 5, 6 years ago, is that younger people, and when I say younger people, I'm talking like high school kids, like teenagers, starting to come in and buy records, which I hadn't seen very often. There was always like that cool kid who would come in and buy like stuff, but not a lot. But these kids were coming in on their lunches. And I thought, oh, that's great for the hobby, getting some like new blood into it. And it wasn't just like, Gen Xers like me and boomers coming in who grew up with records. It was younger people who, frankly, I think there was a novelty of ownership, and that's what I thought it was about. Now, and I used to work for a record label, so I can say this. Major record labels, their favorite thing is taking the golden goose and just strangling it, getting as much money out of it as they possibly can, and then it dies, and they go, oh, what happened? And they have been pushing the price of records up to the point, at least for new releases, and overall the hobby has, and I'm, benefit from it too. But the new releases have become, crazy. Kids don't have the money and I've heard this more often than not, to buy, a plain new release coming out at $35 to $45. High school kids just, a lot of them, and a lot of them have dropped out of collecting records. I've heard several of them say that. I've also noticed like brand new releases, or like releases that are like 4 or 5 years old, showing up in thrift stores, and it's pretty clear where somebody was like, I'm done, and just got rid of their collection. I don't think this is a good thing. But a positive thing that's come out of it is a lot of them have come in asking for CDs. And this is the first time, honest to God, in like 10 years that people have asked me, do I have CDs? Now, when I first opened 20 years ago, I did have CDs. And I have always collected CDs. I might even show you my collection. It's ridiculous. It's, whoops, 3 to 4 thousand. I don't know. It's a lot. It's stupid. It's as much as my vinyl collection. And I have always bought CDs because I'm cheap. I got into vinyl. I don't know if I probably told the story before, but I got into record collecting. Obviously, I was born at the tail end of 1970, not 1970s, 1970. And so all that was options there was some 8 tracks, cassettes, and vinyl. That was it. That was all that was there in the record stores. And I always, I bought new releases on vinyl. I touched my face. Well, actually my head this time. So for those who count that sort of thing and follow along, mark it down as one. But in the 1990s, vinyl became passe, and CDs were out. And I, like everybody, was buying CDs. And I was going to garage sales and finding, records for 50 cents. Remember those days? And $1. And then also people were giving me collections, whole collections, just to get them out of the way and give them the space back, because they switched over to CDs, which didn't take up as much space. And that was it. My record collection just exploded at that point. And it was because I'm cheap. I was buying what was cheapest. New releases on CD I was buying because obviously it wasn't available on vinyl. And the older stuff I was buying at garage sales for next to nothing. So as we all know, the vinyl came back and the prices exploded. And I don't buy very often new releases anymore because honestly, $40 to $50 for a new release for me is like, just, you know what, it isn't really worth it. And things have flipped. You go to a garage sale now and scratched up Beatles records are like, I don't know, somewhere in the range of people have eBay prices stuck on them for $20 and $25 and stuff like this. And every record is 10 to 15 at a garage sale now. And, that's great. No problem with that whatsoever. But they'll have a box of amazing CDs for like 50 cents to $1 a piece. And thrift stores, same thing. Like records, the prices have gone, everything that's decent goes into the showcase and has like an eBay buy it now price on it rather than what it actually sells for. And usually more than I can ask for it in my retail shop. Their CDs have started creeping up. CDs at Value Village are now $3.99 a piece, which, I think even 4 or 5 years ago, they were 99 cents, and they've started to creep up. But there are still good things to be had. And I managed to find some good CDs for cheap, and I think you still can at the thrift stores. Case in point, I picked up a Violent Femmes record, CD, that has 2 extra tracks on it, and it was $1.99. I already own the original pressing on vinyl, but if I wanted to go buy that record, it would be $30 to probably $40 if I wanted it in really nice shape. So there's a case in point. I've also noticed, though, that it is getting harder at thrift stores to find good CDs, because I think there's a lot of the kids, and it's always the kids who, the kids are all right, they'll figure the way, are buying them up. And they're buying them at garage sales because they're cheap again. And I think that's great because ownership, for me, ownership of media is what it's all about. And I think a lot of the people who follow along on my channel probably agree. So what I'm going to do is just show you, and this will be real quick, my preamble will probably be longer than the actual thing itself. Some of the CDs I picked up for, fairly inexpensive prices. And I think you'd be shocked to find some of the stuff that I got because it was, pretty decent stuff. All right, we'll go show you that stuff right now. Okay, so part of the reason that I did this video, because I do pick up CDs all the time, is that I have noticed that, again, there is growing interest in them. But also because on this day, I went to 3 separate thrift stores and came away with 3 piles of CDs. The first place that I went to was the Value Village. Now, I peeled the sticker off this, but it was $2.99, and it's a Lemonheads car button cloth that I didn't have, and I love the Lemonheads, so I bought that. You can see where the remnants of the sticker is. And then, same thing, this was there. This one was only $1.99, I will admit, a little cheaper at the Value Village. It's the Leslie Spitt Trio, which are a Toronto, Ontario band, and they do a fantastic cover, and I didn't have this on CD, of Angel from Montgomery, John Prine song. So I picked that up. Then I went from there to a Salvation Army thrift store, in Hamilton that I hit on a regular basis, and there aren't usually a lot of CDs in there that are worth, for me anyways, picking up, but there was a bunch. Now some of these are probably going to be, that's the ones that are over there. Sorry, different pile, didn't plan this very well. So there was a bunch. I'll go with that one in a minute, but I picked up Queens of the Stone Age. And they only charged, I believe it is $1.99 still a CD. So $2 a CD. So what else can you get for a toonie? That's how you know I'm in Canada. I said toonie. But I got a couple of Queens of the Stone Age, a couple of Gorillaz, a whole bunch of Daft Punk. Somebody just dropped off all their Daft Punk CDs. Some of these I have already, and so they'll end up going out in the store. And then some Lana Del Rey. I'm not a huge fan, but there are some tracks I like. And then, so I think, was that it? There might have been some more in there. But this was the probably the find of the day. So it's Tyler, the Creator. And this was a limited edition CD that came out, and it came out with little patches and stickers and a booklet and a whole bunch of different things in there. So I was like, oh, cool, I'll buy that. Didn't realize how apparently rare it is. And on eBay, well, even on Discogs, the median on this is like $60. I know, for a CD. Got to keep your eye out because there are some rare. A lot of hip-hop stuff put out usually like different versions, and the limited ones can still fetch some good money. But anyways, just to show you the receipt, there you go. There were 17 CDs for $33.88. Plus, I also had a 20% off discount. So for less than $30, you know, all in, I ended up getting a whole stack of CDs. So that is how the day started. I got back to town, my town, and hit a local thrift store. And you know what? Sure enough, a whole bunch of new CDs had come in. Now, they don't get a ton, and most of the stuff they get doesn't really interest me. But today, or not today, but the day that I went, it was a couple of days ago, I managed to get a whole whack of stuff. So we'll go through those. This was the one I was mentioning earlier. It's Violent Femme, self-titled. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't know this because I did not have it on CD. It actually has 2 extra tracks than what's on the record. And I find that does happen a lot. Now, this is an early CD. You can kind of tell just by looking at it. And yes, there are different pressings of CDs, just like there are records, if you really want to get into it and start collecting hard. But these are all super clean, and they only charge 99 cents. So there you go. I mean, I've already got it on vinyl. And here's the other thing, too. If, like, at some point you ever have to liquidate your record collection because it's worth more money than, I don't know, your house, you can get the CDs for $1 and then sell your records, and there you go. I'm hopefully never have to do that. This is a Rhino collection of the meters. There are actually 2 of them in here, and I don't know. Yeah, so Volume 1 and Volume 2 were both in there, like solid funk. Al Green's Greatest Hits. Booker T and the MG's Green Onions. I have like multiple copies of this on vinyl. It's great to have it on CD. Pearl Jam's Vitalogy. This one was missing the, sadly, the thing, but it's NWA's Greatest Hits. Copy of the Roots. Eazy-E. This one's pretty interesting because Fred J. Eaglesmith is sort of a local folk guy. Folk rock and roll type thing, and this is from an official bootleg series, Volume 2, and it's the Fred Eaglesmith Texas Weekend from 2004. It's 2 CD set. You know, don't see that kind of stuff very often. The Dead's Working Man Dead. Beck's Mellow Gold. Should probably turn this around. AC/DC's Jailbreak. Why not? It was $1. Northern Pike's Snow in June. Temple of the Dog. I have a lot of these already, so these will be going out into the store. And again, in the past, I wouldn't have bought stuff like this, but I get, like I said, I've had so many more young kids coming in and asking about CDs. And so when they're cheap enough, I just try to buy them. I don't make a lot of money reselling them, but it's great to see kids getting into the physical ownership of media. I have no beef with streaming. That, you know, if that's what you want to do, I don't think it's good for artists. I don't think it's good for the industry in general. But again, as I've said, major record labels, they don't care. They just don't. They'll squeeze that golden goose. They're getting drunk. Like in the 90s, they were drunk on CD money. And in the 2000s, they were, until Napster came along. And, you know, now they're drunk again on streaming money. And they are also pushing the price of vinyl up largely because they're like, let's see how far boomers and Gen X, you know, how much they're willing to pay. The young people are out. Like, they're already getting out. It is just too much money you know, for things. But they're getting into CDs. And hopefully the record labels don't notice that and start reissuing CDs. So Cypress Hill, I don't have that. I'll probably keep it myself. Year of the Horse, Neil Young and Crazy Horse. Excellent Warren Zevon CD. This is kind of interesting too. Guns N' Roses. It is I believe, a bootleg. It's like one recorded live in CBGB's and another at Electric Jam in '87. So, that's kind of interesting to find. Jack White's Lazaretto. The Yeah Yeah Yeahs. It's Blitz. I love the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. I went to the Vice Toronto Film Festival show that they did for Vice magazine back when it was a magazine, and that was just bonkers. It was like you had to get a ticket. Basically, you didn't pay to get in. It was a free show, but you had to know people, and luckily I did. And yeah, I believe it was like a sponsored open bar. It was a gong show, but it was an amazing concert. Anyways, Oasis, definitely maybe. George Harrison's All Things Must Pass box, which is kind of cool because it's set up actually like the record set, which is kind of cool. And then a whole bunch of Cowboy Junkies because I love the Junkies. Black Eyed Man. I have some of these. I have to go through. I didn't have a copy of Whites Off Earth Now, which was their first record. I have it on vinyl, but not on CD, so that's kind of good. 200 More Miles, live performances, and then what I consider to be one of the greatest Canadian records ever recorded, and possibly it's always in my top 10 of everything of all time, is the Trinity Sessions. I don't think you could make a better record. I know people will argue and be like, no, dude, what are you talking about? But no, honestly, this is just a beautiful, beautiful piece of recorded music, and everybody should own a copy. But yeah, that's it. So a whole whack all in the same day. And again, ranging from $1 up to $2.99 and $3.99 at the Value Village. And it is unusual. Again, these collections still show up every so often, so I'd be taking advantage of it now, before the same thing that happened to records and vinyl, where the prices, everybody starts getting and the price is going crazy. I think that CDs are probably going to be heading in that direction eventually too. So as a collector, buy them up now before it gets the prices start getting really ridiculous and you start seeing record store day CD releases like you saw record store day cassette releases. It'll happen, I'll guarantee it, because that's the way the record industry works. They see a good thing, they hop on and see how much money they can make out of it, and then they ruin it. So try to get them now before that happens. God, I sounded really doomsday negative there. I'm sorry, that's not what I meant to project at all. But my whole point is physical media is where it's at. Grab this stuff before it comes. I know the arguments will be made, well, digital blah 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 versus analog blah blah blah, and I've been, I'm a recording engineer, but you know what? I have talked to multiple people who have things. The art of mastering CDs and the art of mastering records are two separate things. It's like comparing apples to oranges as far as I'm concerned. I like both apples and oranges, and this is the case here. I will also point out, though, that a lot of the records that were made in the 90s were afterthoughts because everything was digital in the 90s. It was digital recording. It went to a digital, like a DAT tape usually, or straight to a digital file. And then it was mastered digitally as well. And the analog mastering was an afterthought, just like back in the day, it sort of flipped. And you end up, for all essential purposes, and again, people have screamed, there are exceptions to this, obviously, but for a lot of people and a lot of bands, and especially ones on the bigger labels, the vinyl was an afterthought. They were winding it down, and so records that you bought in the 90s are essentially, and this is going to get a lot of people angry, really just CD on vinyl. And so, I love having both. But sort of, if you're looking for what the 90s records, the bands wanted them to sound like, this is it, CDs. Leave your comments down. I'm sure a lot of you are going to have some, because I normally do think I love vinyl records. I love CDs. I love cassettes. Heck, I even like 8-tracks because I think it's fun. So yeah, there you go. Get out there, look for some CDs, grab them while you can before the prices go crazy. All right.